Hi, I'm Charlie DeBiase, and this is Tom Dowd, sports reporters for the Staten Island Advance. And Tom, here we go again. The 2009 Staten Island High School League Tournament Championship is going to be, once again, between the Curtis Warriors and the St. Peter's Eagles. Curtis with a 69-54 victory over McKee Staten Island Tech in the semifinals, and St. Peter's with a 68-59 victory over Newdorp. They're going to be playing for the championship for the second straight year. What do you expect to be happening on Saturday night?
Well, it's a familiar matchup, first of all. This will be the 7th time we've got Curtis and St. Peter's in the championship game. But I've never seen them, I'm not sure I've ever seen any championship game matchup where the two teams we've had were just so similar in their makeup and their personnel. It's really kind of remarkable, I think, the way these teams both revolve around their big men. Odiana Sicki, 6'8" for St. Peter's. Khalil Kanasevic, 6'8" for Curtis. They're the leading scorers for both their teams. They might be the only double-figure scorers, regular game-in, game-out scorers for their teams. And they're surrounded by teams that, they're going 7 or 8 deep. A lot of role player kind of guys for both teams all over the place. And two teams that play excellent defense. This was the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the island in defense, both averaging, giving up 40-something points a game. And they play similarly. They're built similarly personnel-wise. I just think it makes for a really interesting matchup.
Well, the Eagles and the Warriors, of course, played earlier this year, as always, on Thanksgiving Eve. St. Peter's won a 51-36 ball game, which was an ugly contest. That was a defensive-laden contest, and St. Peter's pulled away in the fourth quarter. These teams are completely different, I think, going into this game.
Yeah, about the only kid for either team that made a shot that night was Rob Harai for St. Peter's.
True.
If not for him, I think we're looking at a 36-36 tie. But obviously he was the difference for St. Peter's that night. St. Peter's has gotten a lot better, and Curtis especially. That first week, 36 points against St. Peter's, 53 points a couple days later against Petrides. And they've done a complete about-face. They ended up averaging, 60-something points a game. Things just kind of started to click for them around New Year's, the Christmas tournament, and they worked some point guards into the lineup a little bit. They got Jonathan Anand, Devin Garner taking care of the ball. They run a lot of offense through Khalil Kanasevic, especially if, we saw last night teams play zone. They're going to give the ball to Leo high post and try and let him be a passer. And St. Peter's has just kind of gotten into a little bit of a groove. They've lost their point guard, Dylan McCann, for some stretches. They got him back shortly after Thanksgiving Eve, and he was playing great, and then they lost him again for a month. So, but they've got a lot of guys who can score if you get them in the right situations, and a lot of that, of course, starts with Odiana Sicki, drawing double teams, drawing defenses, and being smart and passing out of it.
Well, I think one of the things about St. Peter's that Coach Charlie Driscoll and the team had learned as the season has gone on, that someone that has emerged as a secondary player, a second go-to player, and he had a terrific game against Newdorp the other night, is Lenny Regaglia. How important is it when Regaglia is on from the outside like he was against Newdorp? I mean, that makes things a lot easier for St. Peter's.
That's everything for St. Peter's because, you can't expect Odie to score 50 points. Somebody else has to score. And a lot of those points are going to come from getting the ball inside. Odie draws a double team, and now he's going to pass out. He's going to pass to cutters. He's going to pass to three-point shooters. He's going to skip the ball across the court. And the first guy he wants to get it to is Regaglia because he's their best three-point shooter.
Right.
So he's been huge for them. He had a stretch in the middle of the season when McCann was out. He was in the starting lineup. He's back in the starting lineup now, but he was in there, shot very well. And so somebody has to make shots for St. Peter's. Yep. And Regaglia is the first option. Trevor Sykes made a couple of jumpers last night, too. That was important. And those two guys kind of got St. Peter's going last night.
Okay, the Warriors, of course, everything, as you said, goes through Kanasevic. He had 18 points and 18 rebounds against McKee Staten Island Tech the other day. But Coach Buckeye goes 9 to 10 players deep. And then, for instance, in the Tech game, someone like Quentin Tate had 11 points and 11 rebounds. He's getting contributions sometimes from different people, but nonetheless, somebody's always stepping up and contributing on the side.
You never have any idea who is going to score for Curtis after Khalil Kanasevic. Right. You just don't know.
No, it's true.
And I think that scares Coach Buckeye a little bit, but it probably shouldn't because they have a lot of guys who can score, and they have a lot of guys who are going to score because Khalil draws so much attention and because he's such a gifted passer. Carl Allen had a great game Sunday. They're going to get out in transition, and that's going to get opportunities for Carl Allen, for Mike Balogun, for the point guards, for Garner and Nunn. Quentin Tate's a kid who hustled, runs the floor. He got some transition opportunities tonight. So they've got a lot of guys. They play a style that gives a lot of people opportunity. You don't know who it's going to be. I can't tell you who it's going to be. But somebody is going to come up and score some points for Curtis on Saturday.
That's the usual way it is. And now do you see, it was so successful against Tech, do you see Curtis possibly staying with that switching the defenses 2-3 matchup zone 1-3-1? Do you think they'll do the same thing against Peters, or was that something that they used primarily against Tech this year?
I think they'll do different things against St. Peter's. I think that they played almost entirely zone last night, and I think that was specifically because they were playing Tech. Tech is so good. They run the dribble drive, and they like to get that penetration, so I think Curtis wanted to cut that off. I think they'll be a little bit everything on Saturday. They're going to play some man. They're going to play some 1-3-1. They're going to play some 2-3. The zone, of course, protects a little bit from foul trouble. But, Richie is very, I talked to him a little bit a couple weeks ago just about the way they play. And he's a very pragmatic guy. He's not a guy who's married to, we're going to play this style because that's the way I like to play. He wants to figure out what's going to work, and let's go do it. So,
all right, lastly, Tom, the all-important question. What kind of an advantage would either team have if they got the other big man in foul trouble? If Odi Anisiki or Halil Kanasevic have to go off for an extended period of time, how much of an advantage is that?
Well, that could be everything. I mean, if one of these guys gets in foul trouble and has to sit for a while, for like 10 minutes or so, misses that kind of time, that could be the whole game right there. Because there's not another player on the island, aside from one or the other, who can physically match up with these guys. We've seen it all throughout the season. So if that happens, that's going to have a huge impact on the game.
And nonetheless, either way, it'll definitely be interesting. Well, the Warriors and the Eagles will be meeting for the 7th time on Saturday night at the College of Staten Island, beginning at 8 o'clock. Both teams have won 3 championships apiece against each other, so this is the rubber match. We'll see what happens. For Tom Dowd, I'm Charlie DeBiase.